There may be a point when we get through this and we just survive it, but we do actually realize on the back end of it that, man, we really have grown in great ways because we have been able to recalibrate our sense of identity, and not what we can strive for, not what we can accomplish, but for maybe for the positive things we see in our relationships, or that this reveals I've got some real work to do to continue to steward and to grow the relationships that are closest to me. And that may be the fruit of the process that is most helpful.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Mic. This is your spiritual deep dive conversation of radio theology. And now here are your hosts, Pastor Darren Earlywine, Ryan Allward, and Lisa Graft.
Are you striving? Are you thriving? Or are you just surviving? We're going to answer the question right now in the next episode, the current episode of Behind the Mic right here, the spiritual deep dive edition of Radio Theology. Manning the ship, as always, is your captain speaking, Pastor Darren Earlywine. Taking care of the cabin today will be Lisa Graft and Ryan Allward, as always. And guys, it is a quarantine edition. This is for the week of April 19th, 2020, to go down in history as the great pandemic quarantine of 2020. And we're in our closets. And after listening back to the past couple of weeks' shows, guys, I'm pretty pleased with the production value of the closet editions of Radio Theology.
Yep. Yeah, we all became audio engineers overnight, too. Good job, guys.
Yep.
Way to be.
Sure did. Nothing like all of my clothes to really dampen the sound, so this is good.
Yes. This episode brought to you by hoodies and button-down shirts. I want to give a big shout-out to Lisa, who has taken over editing and putting the show all together. And Lisa, thanks for your extra efforts in these times of quarantine.
Oh, yeah.
So this week, I think one of our best pieces of content we had was from your Lisa's Pieces segment. Lisa, we didn't go too deep. Last week's Easter show, we definitely were in the deeper end of the pool. As the quarantine stretches on, we didn't go too deep in some of our segments this week, just to try to kind of meet people in the middle. Obviously the heart of our show is we're Christians, and it's a faith-based show, but on a secular pop station. And so we always are trying to be mindful of our entire audience. And so there's sometimes we go a little bit further to the deep end of the pool spiritually, and sometimes we don't, in a way to just honor the audience. And if you're joining us here maybe for the first time on Behind the Mic, thank you for downloading this episode, listening to it, and maybe this is your kind of first step towards a different level of spiritual engagement. And we just want to tell you how grateful we are that you've joined us today. But this show was a little bit less spiritual, I guess you could say, except one of the points that you made, Lisa, during Lisa's piece, I think we can dig into, and I know it resonated with me. But you basically unpack the concept that you're seeing so much online. There's so much that you can see about, we should be living our best life and writing our next new book and coming out with six-pack abs after the quarantine and just, thriving. But you've kind of flipped a switch and discovered the cool kind of definitions of what it means, that maybe surviving the quarantine is more than you would think it's actually cracked up to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was starting to get anxious. Especially the first couple weeks settling into quarantine, I started feeling like I'm not doing enough. Now's my time to, be at home, and now I must have all this extra time and capacity, and nothing could be further from the truth for me. I have less capacity, less time, and less energy overall because I'm with my family all day long, and just the emotional toll that takes on me, and I know I'm not alone in that. So I just started to first get anxious, and then I started rebelling because I'm like, this doesn't have to be my story. If I survive this, that's going to be victory for me. And so when I sat down to write, I started thinking, I wonder what it actually means to survive. And so I got on my Google machine, and surviving means to continue to function, to live on. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. That's all I want to do, is continue to function and to live on. Right? To me, that sounds like victory. I don't know about you guys.
Well, and before I think it almost sounds like, I mean, before you read the definition, I know, like, in my mind, I can be like, yeah, if somebody said, hey, how'd you do during the quarantine of 2020? And I said, well, I survived it. Like, I'd even, like, if you even notice the voice inflection there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's almost like saying, I don't know, like maybe a D plus, C minus,
Yeah.
which is to survive. And it's, I think it shows us how hardwired this idea is that we have to, the pressure we feel to always be performing and be able to do everything with excellence brings on this pressure that to live on and to make it through one of the most unprecedented times ever is somehow not good enough for us, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can relate with that for sure, of just, always wanting to be doing things very, very well. There just has to come a time every day where I just turn it off and I go, I'm going to go upstairs and go outside and play in the yard. Like, I've got a yard that I don't play in. I mow it and I look at it. Let's go hide some Easter eggs, or let's go play Frisbee with the kids, or, let's just go take a walk around the neighborhood. And for me, it's often difficult as a self-employed person in the creative world to not really know when to shut that off. And so finding those pockets of rest for me it's been eye-opening. It's been good, and I'm grateful for it. It is hard, though, you're right, Lisa, to fight that battle between surviving it, getting through it, and trying to thrive in it too. Yeah, it's a really good conversation of just what are we hunkering down and just trying to get through it, or are we really trying to let God grow us as opposed to growing under our own strength and our own will and muscle through it? Because that's exhausting.
Yeah.
But why do you guys think that we think surviving means quitting?
Well, and I think it's the same. I saw a quote the other day that I'm going to steal and reuse in some fashion, but it's like, just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. If it's anything less than the absolute best by yours or someone else's standards, then it means failing. And I don't know how that came to be, but that is for sure the impression, especially, I'm sure it's for everybody, but in the mom circles that I'm in, like, I'm watching this. It's devastating to moms who have already felt the pressure, especially working moms who now we're forced to stay home now and become teachers and all of the other things. And because we're not doing it well, or we don't think we are, there's this extra pressure of, well, this is how it was intended to be, the mother raising her children, and, and so if we're not loving it, every second of it, and coming up with new recipes and all of the crafts and whatever, then we're not doing enough. We're failing.
Yeah, I think there's so many layers to it, right? Because that may be a way that a mom is processing it. I'm thinking about, friends of mine, men that, and I guess it's interesting, right? Is that it's kind of like the assumption is that every dad's a working dad, right? But then there's this kind of two-sided thing for women where, like, you're a working mom or you're a stay-at-home mom, and I know a handful of stay-at-home dads, but most of them aren't, right? And so we could probably spend 3 or 4 shows unpacking the different psychological effects of that. But I think there's men that it's not like, oh, am I not doing a great job being a dad? But there's that part of, like, I'm like, a lot of a man's identity is I provide for my family and I'm the one out working, whatever. And now I'm either not able to work or I don't have a job anymore. So it's, I can't thrive. I literally, talking to some of my best friends who are high capacity, very successful business people, and it's impossible for them to achieve during this time, right? Like, I gain my identity, my sense of significance, my paycheck, like everything that is my life is absolutely inaccessible right now, and I cannot thrive in it. So then it's like, that's one of my concerns about all of this is if we get caught I shouldn't say if we, I'll say as we are caught in the spin cycle of this survive, thrive, and like I like how you put it during the show, Lisa, is that it drives us to begin striving, which can be very dangerous because it becomes all about us. But it is, as this continues, if we're not anchoring ourselves in truth and allowing God to guide us through this, the level of emotional damage, potential depression, anxiety, things that could come from this, because we are such a performance-driven culture and world, really. And then we have environments, whether it's stay-at-home moms or at-work dads that are out of work, that whole process of if I just survive this, it just becomes the icing on the cake of how much of a failure I feel like. And that's a dangerous stew.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to bring it back to striving, I feel like that's why it's so important to be in relationship with Jesus and have access and know the Holy Spirit's voice in your life. Because, and I wrote about this, but I really feel like it's true. When I am most at peace, which is a gift of the Spirit, then I can recognize this normal cadence, this rhythm, the lull throughout my day. And sometimes, but I just have I have this rhythm, and I have this pulse, and that, I believe, comes from the Holy Spirit telling me who I am and helping me live like that. And so when I'm trying to strive, striving means to struggle in opposition. And so I'm struggling in opposition, not just against my relationship with God, but against who He's actually created me to be. So I'm trying to walk upstream when all He's asking me to do is just stay in the boat and let Him paddle, So that's been the dangerous part for me. But the good part of it is recognizing it and naming it already has helped take this pressure off, going, okay, I can sit in the boat. Not that I don't have to paddle from time to time myself. That's not like if I'm not striving, I'm not putting forth any effort. That's not true at all. But it's just the mindset of, I don't want to strive to become something I'm not even supposed to be in the first place.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, we're taking on these external roles. Like if you're a working dad, or not even a dad, but so much of who you are is in what you achieve and what you accomplish and how you strive. And then, in your situation, Lisa, in a lot of millions of mom situations that are working moms, of like, I had this dual identity of the mom, but also the, a worker, and trying to figure all that out. But what comes back to me is that, and maybe this is that part of surviving and not struggling against it, but realizing the core of who we are as human beings. And this is something that I talk about, in the ebook, God is Near, which I'd love for you to have. If you haven't got a copy yet, you can just go to IamBornToBe.com, and I'll send you a free copy this morning, or not this morning, whenever you send us an email. But the core understanding that we were created for a life with God. We were created for relationships, not for accomplishments. And I think that's, in the context that you're talking about, is as a stay-at-home mom, like, it's not about are you doing the best arts and crafts and whatever's, but it's challenging you to, like, are my relationships the core of my life? For a dad that spends most of his time outside his home working, and he's kind of like, he's a figurehead in the home, but like that's not where he brings a sense of security. There can be, I think, maybe a failure, a feeling of failure of like, this is a recalibration of all I have left is my relationships. And that's a reality check of if, how much of that is guiding and directing in the foundation of our life. And I think maybe as we are being forced to have to recalibrate that, as we talked about in the show, there may be a point where we get through this and we just survive it, but we do actually realize on the back end of it that, man, we really have grown in great ways, because we have been able to recalibrate our sense of identity, and not what we can strive for, not what we can accomplish, but for maybe for the positive things we see in our relationships, or that this reveals I've got some real work to do to continue to steward and to grow the relationships that are closest to me. and that may be the fruit of the process that is most helpful.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think striving is one of the things that's fear-based for most people or all people. And that's why it's just really is just a distraction. Like, you probably are growing, but that, you might not even be seeing it because of all the extra effort. You're not seeing peace. You're not seeing hope because you're distracted by all the work that you think you need to do in order to survive or thrive in the season where you might be called just to be.
That's interesting.
What I think some of it too, is like you guys are in a different season of parenting. And so what could look like a failure, like I think about like Lisa, you may have a situation where, you have a meltdown with your daughter, or, Cal's trying to potty train and it's like not going great or what, like, and
yes, and yes.
Ryan, you've got little ones at home and
yeah.
My kids, they have a little bit stronger, emotional handle on themselves because they're older, right? But like for you guys, and I think for maybe a lot of people with small kids, is that you could have what feels like a parenting failure. Like, spent a lot of time with my kid today and it didn't go all that great. There were some ups and downs and they had 3 meltdowns and whatever. And I didn't finish that and feel like anybody handed me a trophy. I didn't finish that and go, wow, that was a really great work presentation. Man, I really killed it in whatever it is. In fact, it felt bad. But I think that one of the things I love about the understanding when somebody taught me the idea of grace is not just about unmerited favor and forgiveness, but it's actually about presence. Is God's grace, one of the best ways to see it is him saying, hey, my grace is sufficient, right? And all the ways that you see grace in the scriptures is to shift your mind and not think about it's forgiveness I didn't deserve, but to think about it's actually his companionship and presence that I don't deserve. And so that understanding that the beautiful thing about our relationship in surviving with Christ is not that we had a day that was amazing and we went and walked on water and healed people and did miracles like he did. It's that he was present with us as we were growing in relationship and surviving together. And so as you're listening to this, maybe for you it's like, man, I don't, like when I have a bad day as a mom or as a dad or getting through this or I'm not able to achieve, is looking at it that a 3 meltdown day that you've had with your kid that you wouldn't have regularly have had. Yeah, no one gave you a trophy, but your children experienced your presence. You guys survived that together. So there's a depth of relationship being built that doesn't come with accolades, but it may be just the thing that is irreplaceable and that you will never want to trade on the back end of this because of what actually was growing in the relationships that you're enjoying or struggling through.
Ryan, you have thoughts on this? Have you been Google searching, or it looks like you've been doing a little research on your computer?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like this balance of what is actually traumatic. And maybe this is my low empathy strength. Like empathy on my list of strengths is like 33 out of 34. Okay. And I had a conversation with a friend about this recently. She didn't grow up in a military family, but her dad was a principal. And so they moved around a lot, like my family and I moved. We were very migratory because my dad was in the Navy and he'd get orders every 2-3 years and we'd uproot and transplant in another city, new school, new church, new home, new friend group, everything. And I'm just trying to think of like in my family history, okay, stories I've been told about my papa going off to the Vietnam War and technology being as such that his base was attacked, but he wasn't there because it was actually after the fact that he had left. Okay. And then news hitting my Nana and my mom and like them not knowing if he was okay. That's traumatic. To me, this is my situation. I look around and I go, I have a finished basement with a table dedicated to Legos to entertain my children. I have lights on that I do take for granted. I have 2 refrigerators I've got 2 cars if we had to leave. Like, this, to me personally, is not traumatic. I think the interesting thing that I'm sensing is like guilt of admitting that I'm actually doing okay in this pandemic. Like, actually, like, people are like, how you doing? I'm like, today was awesome. Like, today was great. My family is healthy. We're safe. We've got food. Like, we've got the, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, we've got a lot of it covered compared to a lot of other people that are like, I mean, a friend of ours just got off a ventilator. I'm like, that to me is trauma. And so, I don't know. It's hard for me to relate of like, I feel alone in this. It's like, I actually like being with my family in this.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel that more the pressure of like survival, it's more the pressure to be like, yeah, this really sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think
this is really, and so for me, it's like this kind of discomfort of like, actually, I'm doing okay. Like, I don't know. And I'm not trying to sound, I don't know what the opposite of empathetic is, unempathetic, but I don't know. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm actually trying to grow in this. I'm trying for God, like, to be open to the reminders that God is being like, hey, you thought that our relationship was like this, and you thought that your identity was like this. This is changing a lot of the variables. And all in all, it's been, there have been, of course, meltdowns and dumpster fires throughout the day. But I think all in all, it's positive. And I'm just kind of personally living in this struggle of being like, things are okay. And I'm not trying to sound like a jerk about that. I'm not trying to sound not sympathetic to other people's like legitimate plight, like they're fighting for their lives. But I don't know.
It reminds me of, and I've had it on my to-do list last week and didn't do it, I wanted to watch one of Brene Brown's posts, and I think she did maybe a webinar on, and then I had counseling last week, and my counselor reminded me of this, is that we buy into the myth of comparative suffering. Where if I'm feeling discomfort in this at whatever level, and then I see, like, here's where it hit me. I'm with you, Ryan. I'm now at the point where I'm more annoyed at the lack of ability to get actual, real, definitive, reliable information about this whole pandemic than I am my life situation. I'm so grateful that we do so much content online. I'm a little stir crazy, but like I'm loving the time I'm having with my kids. We're going to look back and be like, dude, this was a blast comparatively. I mean, it's sort of, I'd rather be playing baseball with them, but like there's been a lot of good, but like I see a article about, what's the coronavirus like for, Syrian refugees and refugee camps? Well, immediately now I'm shaming myself like, oh my gosh, if you ever feel sad about your life, you're the biggest piece of crap in the world, right? And so I don't allow myself to have the emotions or to learn from it or to just feel, because now I've bought into the myth of comparative suffering, that if I can find someone suffering worse than me, I should feel guilty about the discomfort that I have. And that's a myth. There's a way that Brene Brown says it, and I can't remember the quote, but basically it's like, that doesn't work. And I think one of the difficult things for us is we're so globally connected now because of technology. It takes nothing for you to find someone that obviously has it way worse than you do. But comparing yourself, it doesn't let you off the hook. It doesn't help you at all. You can still feel either the joy, no problem. If you need to feel joy about the place you're in, feel joy. Don't feel guilty about the joy that you feel. If you feel sorrow, you don't need to feel bad about the fact that you feel sorrowful because there's someone else that has it worse. It's your life. It's where you are. It's you surviving through this process. And I think that's a process that we need to be mindful of and make sure that we're not sending ourselves down some kind of weird place of that as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And my other thought too that comes to mind is, for the extra capacity of any of us, and if you're listening and you've got more capacity, more joy, more hope than you see around you, then give that away. Don't be stingy with that. look around and give that away so generously, because there are so many people that need even the smallest bit of hope and joy that you can bring. We're hungry for it, desperate for it.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
That's a great word, Lisa. There is. And I think that's what we've tried to do, as far as the content we're creating. We've been trying to stay, in our respective lanes of what we can create, from Ryan sharing joy through music and Lisa sharing, joy and hope through the content with I'mMotherOfTheYear.com. And that's the reason that I wrote the God is Near ebook to try to help people is that, when God has placed us and we happen to be in a fortunate position, and we may be in a place where we do have hope and we do have our needs met, is this just, we're not meant just to contain it, but to actually bring it to other people. And that brings so much more purpose and so much more meaning to each one of our lives. And so every week, every day of this is something we've never done. It's joyful. It's annoying. It's interesting. It's overwhelming. It's all the emotions. Whether you're thriving in it, don't feel guilty about thriving in this. That's great. If you're at a place where you just need to survive it, don't feel guilty about that. That's okay. Like, we're all on our own journey, and the good news is whether this is a thriving season for you because this is something you were cut out for, or it's a surviving season, the good news is God is near you and for you in that process no matter what. And if in all of that, what he's working towards is to develop and grow your relationship with him in a way that when you come out of the back end of this, you realize that he was at work in beautiful, gracious ways the whole time. And maybe that's just what we need.
Yep, can't ask for much more than that.
That's a good point, Lisa, because basically what I just said is that God who creates the entire universe, that loves you, gave his life for you, he is okay with the individual journey you're on and wants to walk with you in a very gracious way through it. And if you don't get a gold medal when you get out, he's not mad or disappointed in you. Well, guys, I kind of have a desire just to keep talking, because after I stop this, I'm not sure what else I do the rest of the day. But we want to honor your time, and it's been a joy to be back with you here on Behind the Mic. We thank you guys so much for helping this podcast grow. Those of you that are sharing it with other people, that are commenting, that are reaching out to us, it means the world to us. We love being a part of your life. And if you haven't gotten the ebook yet, you can get it by just going to I'mBornToBe.com and give us register with your email, and we'll send you the ebook. It's a very short 5-chapter. You can read it probably in about 35, 45 minutes, the book in its entirety. And it's called God is Near, Not Far Away. And it's one of the key points we say every week here on Radio Theology and on Behind the Mic, that God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far away from you, and he has created you on purpose and for a purpose. And so I put together that ebook because I thought it would encourage you. I thought it might inspire you and help you continue to find hope during these uncertain times. And so if you'd like a copy of it, like I said, head over to I'mBornToBe.com right now and register with your email, and we'll send you a copy of the ebook. And so, guys, we're going to make it. We're going to survive this. And, man, it's been a blast. And until we talk to you again, never forget these 3 things. God's for you, not against you. He is near you, not far away. And he's created you on purpose and for a purpose. God bless. We love you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Behind the Mic, the spiritual deep dive conversation of radio theology. If you have a question to ask Pastor Darren, or have any questions for any of the Radio Theology cast, just email us at Darren, Ryan, or Lisa at blackbirdmission.com. And be sure to share this episode with a friend who could use a little encouragement. Talk to you next week right here on Behind the Mic.